Why is the United States involved in Ukraine? And why is the U.S. funding and supporting violent rioters, many of whom are from the ultra-nationalist, neo-Nazi Svoboda party and right sector? What would the Obama administration do if U.S. protesters threw Molotov cocktails at the police? Or skinheads were using guns to storm government buildings? And what would they do if Russia or China were responsible for these violent rioters? The United States is in Ukraine supporting neo-Nazis for the same reason that they're on the same side as al-Qaeda in Syria and that they're funding and supporting neo-fascists in Egypt. The U.S. is in Ukraine for the same reason that they support the brutal dictatorships of Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, invaded Iraq and Afghanistan, and for the same reason that they sided with extremists and bombed Libya and are using drone strikes in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen. The U.S. is in Ukraine for the same reason it supports the overthrow of elected governments all around the world, has a military presence in dozens of African nations, has military bases in more than half the world's countries, spies on much of the world, and for the same reason it gives money and diplomatic cover to Israel's occupation of Palestine. The reason the U.S. is in Ukraine has nothing to do with Pussy Riot, gay rights in Russia, or supporting democracy. The reason the United States is in Ukraine is because of world domination. That's it. The U.S. has been determined to be the world's king ever since it grabbed the superpower reins by dropping nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it will do anything it takes to maintain this status. Institutions like the IMF and World Bank go along with it, as does much of Europe and many nations and corporations around the world that reap the benefit of being buddies with the empire. So what does Ukraine have to do with U.S. world domination, and why would the U.S. risk teaming up with neo-Nazis? It's pretty simple. Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote The Grand Chessboard in 1997, where he lays out the blueprint of how Ukraine is in the U.S. sphere of influence, since it's a geopolitical pivot that sits at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. He continues his thesis by saying Eurasia is the chessboard on which the struggle for global primacy continues to be played, and that it is imperative that no Eurasian challenger emerges capable of dominating Eurasia and thus also of challenging America. In addition, he says Ukraine, a new and important space on the Eurasian chessboard, is a geopolitical pivot because its very existence as an independent country helps to transform Russia. Without Ukraine, Russia ceases to be a Eurasian empire. However, says Brzezinski, if Moscow regains control over Ukraine, with its 46 million people, major resources, as well as access to the Black Sea, Russia automatically again regains the wherewithal to become a powerful imperial state spanning Europe and Asia. He says since America's unprecedented power is bound to diminish over time, the priority must be to manage the rise of other regional powers in ways that do not threaten America's global primacy, and to make certain that no state or combination of states gains the capacity to expel the United States from Eurasia. There is a premium on maneuver and manipulation in order to prevent the emergence of a hostile coalition that could eventually seek to challenge America's primacy.